Start clean with Clorox, because Clorox delivers a powerful clean every time. Because messes happen. Because...
Hey, listen. Remember how you told me to toss those takeout containers before we left for vacation? And you were like, I'm serious. If that leaks over the counter, it'll be a slimy abomination by the time I get back. And I was like, yeah, of course. Don't worry about it. I won't forget. Well...
Ooh, yeah, that happens. So start clean with Clorox. Use Clorox products as directed. Rinse after use if in contact with food surface.
Reebok has officially partnered with college basketball champion and fashion superstar, Angel Reese. A style-forward athlete, Angel Reese has her uniform on the court, but also off the court. That includes the Club C Vintage, Reebok hoodies with Dream Blend fabric, and classic leather, just to name a few. Simply put, she's got an eye for style. Shop Angel's first curated collection, Angel's Picks, including a limited edition Reebok Angel Reese t-shirt at Reebok.com.
Welcome to Nature-Backed podcast of Single Earth. In this podcast, we are talking with investors about their vision of the new green world. My name is Tarmo Virki, and in this episode, I'm talking with Arne Morteani from Kiko Ventures. Enjoy the show.
Hey there, I'm Merit. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Single Earth, and we are building a nature-backed currency to empower you to fight against climate change and biodiversity loss. Sign up at Single.Earth and be among the first to switch to a truly sustainable, nature-based economy. And don't forget to join the discussion around climate change and biodiversity loss on our Discord channel. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the show, Arne.
Thanks, Tarmo.
To start off with, tell us a few words about Kiko Ventures. You officially launched just a few weeks ago, right?
Yeah, we launched just about 2 weeks ago after preparing this for over a year. Kiko Ventures is, at first sight, of course, it's another climate tech, clean tech investor. There have been a number popping up over the last year or two. But really, we try to take a different angle based on our experience, which has been very long in this area. So, of the three founding partners, each one of us spent 20 odd years in and around clean tech, climate tech. Myself, I've been a solar researcher and I did consulting in the area. And the last 15 years, I've been in venture capital doing only clean tech. And have been passionate about this all my life. Was a member of Greenpeace when I was a teenager, so this has been a theme since the 90s for me. So my two founding partners are similarly passionate about the topic and long-standing in the industry. And what we found is that the industry has 99.9% of the money is in traditional fund structures. So-called JP/LP funds, which are great, and there's a great way of attracting capital to the space, but they have some shortcomings. And we felt that something called evergreen money is needed in the space, which is defined by not being in a fund structure, but being basically a big pot of money, and you invest, and as you sell companies, the money comes back. And it's always the same pot of money, and you just keep on recycling the capital. If you need more capital and you were reasonably successful, you can also raise money into these vehicles or into these evergreen structures. But the money then goes into the same pot again. So it's not in a separate fund like in a traditional fund management organization, which means you don't get conflicts of interest between funds. And what it allows you to do is to invest without sort of running out of time and money in the way you would be doing with a traditional fund, and without this sort of 10-year fixed investment mandate that you would have in a traditional fund.
Yeah.
So you get an enormous amount of flexibility. That wasn't really around in this ecosystem. And we launched Kiko to be the first evergreen fund focused exclusively on climate. And the way we've done this is we teamed up with, we ring-fenced an activity that already existed at a organization called IP Group, which is a large listed venture capital outfit that's been around for about 20 years, and had quite a lot of success also by the clean tech team here, And so I joined the existing clean tech team to increase the commitment of IP Group to the space. And so we ring-fence this activity here now and have our own, capital commitment, our own investment committee, team, brand, communication, decision-making, etc., under this roof of IP Group. So IP Group has been phenomenally supportive to us to make this happen. There's really only two ways you can do an evergreen fund, your evergreen investor. One is it's your own money, say family office. And the other way is to do it through a listed structure on the stock markets. Because you always will need, if you use other people's money, you will need to give people the option to exit at some point. Mm-hmm. And if you don't want to do this in a traditional fund structure, the only other way is to do it with a listed structure. So we needed a listed vehicle, and IP Group provides that.
Mm-hmm. We have been talking quite a lot about that dilemma of the classical LP funds, of the 10-year cycles, and if you go to climate tech on your year 3 or 4 and have to start thinking about getting out on the year 7 or 8, it's not too much time for a classical climate tech case, right?
Yeah, I mean you often run out of time even with so-called venture cases, say a software company or so. Even there, it's often an issue. It definitely is an issue for a lot of what people call deep tech, where there's some level of science involved. And it's held back a lot of clean tech innovation. And that's been our frustration over the last 15, 20 years in the space. We've watched this and been frustrated about this. The team here at IP Group has watched it from the outside because they always had evergreen money. But a much smaller activity. Now it's a 450 million platform that we created here. So we're really not just going in with evergreen money, but we're going in at scale to really make stuff happen. And there's lots of stuff that needs to happen, from carbon capture to next generation solar, to you name it. And all of these things need investors that are patient and can be there for the whole ride. And this, all things equal, every entrepreneur should want a full lifecycle investor that you can be with an evergreen structure. And we're going to do business model deals and software deals as well, but with the ambition to really build large global organizations, really build the climate champions of the future, and not grow it a bit for 3 years and then try to find the exit.
The evergreen name is, of course, or the category is, of course, perfect in this industry, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And frankly, even in mainstream venture capital, it's increasingly recognized as something attractive. So last year, Sequoia made quite a lot of publicity about what they call the Sequoia Fund, which is essentially a way of bundling the LP structures into a sort of meta structure that has some evergreen characteristics. And their argument was similar to what I just said, but also things like, once you've IPO'd a company, actually it often makes sense to hold on to it for a little while, which you can't with an LP structure. So they calculated they could have made like 8 billion more of capital if they had done that, of returns. And so there's lots of other advantages if you have that flexibility.
If you're getting ready to do your holiday shopping at places like Walmart, Macy's, or even Expedia, make sure you head to Rakuten first. Rakuten helps you save big on whatever you're buying for the holidays. Getting gifts for friends and family? Get some cash back for yourself. With Rakuten, you can earn cash back on top of the biggest sales of the season, so you get the most savings. Plus, save on festive home decor, party outfits, and that trip to see your fam. And it's easy to use. Just start your shopping online or through the Rakuten app, and you'll get your cashback payments through PayPal or check. Partnering with over 3,700 stores, Rakuten gets paid for sending them shoppers and then shares the money with you. Now that's RAKUTEN. Join for free at Rakuten.com or get the Rakuten app.
Cold and cough season is here. Introducing Ricola Max Throat Care, Ricola's most powerful drop yet. It's the best of Swiss nature wrapped around a powerful liquid menthol center for maximum relief from your worst cough and sore throat. Maximum nature for maximum relief. Try Ricola Max now, available in the cold and cough aisle. Ricola. It's in our nature.
You said that there are like massive challenges which need a longer time frame. What are the biggest challenges you're looking at?
I think there are some areas where you really want to be able to go basically to enable the next generation of science and technology to emerge. So one area where we've done multiple investments is the whole area of alternative fuels. That's hydrogen, but it's also syn fuels. It's also using ammonia for things. So all the ways you can replace fossil fuels, you will have to do that. You can't do everything via electrification. There's a good part that needs to have alternative fuels, either like in shipping or aviation, where you just can't carry around all these batteries or all that hydrogen. You really need the proper fuel. But also areas in industry where you, like for example, steel making, where you want to do that with hydrogen rather than just electricity. So that's a big area. There are more business model type areas which are more traditional venture deals, but very interesting. And I think there's an option to build big sort of champion companies. One of them is the whole area of call it as a service, where you in effect rent out assets rather than selling assets. So that can be anything for consumers, for example. There's more and more companies now that essentially rent out clothes rather than buying clothes. Obviously, we have it in car rental and those sorts of things. But it goes even into the industrial space. You have my personal favorite is lubrication-as-a-service in the industry, where you literally you sell the fact that you're lubricating a piece of industrial equipment, like for example a turbine in a power plant. You don't sell the lubricant, you just sell the fact that it's lubricated. And then that, if you think it through, becomes really interesting from an environmental perspective, because the incentive then is to use as little of the physical asset as possible to achieve the desired effect. So you're engineering changes. So in the, like if I take this example, in the old model, you would want to create a situation where you sell as much lubricant as possible.
Exactly.
In the new world, you want a situation where you use as little lubricant as possible. And same thing, there's lighting as a service, for example, where you have light bulbs basically in industrial plants. If you put the lights up there and they're still owned by you, and you just sell it as a service, you want these things to survive for a very, very long time. While right now, frankly, also on Siemens and so on, historically have designed their light bulbs to break after a certain period of time, so they have to be replaced. So there are areas like this, I think, which are going to come very strongly in the next 5 years plus.
Really interesting. And also the fuel point you were making. I mean, the problem of the fuel could be, of course, solved on a political level if you go and decide that natural gas is the renewable energy source and totally green as the EU, and then it is. It's, I mean, all the green.
It's going to change. Yeah, I mean, this is recent news, and it's very disappointing, frankly, that the EU made that decision. It goes to show how powerful the lobbies are still. One sounds like a conspiracy theorist if you say that a lot of bad things has happened through the lobbying, but it's really true, and I think this is a good indicator of that. However, normally reason wins out sooner or later, and this is a transition period now. I think in a few years' time, I would imagine the topic will come back on the table.
When you hear this, what do you feel? At IMAX, we want to make you feel every frame with immersive audio and the biggest curved screens. Like you're fighting for survival in the woods. Or in a battle that will change the world. With perfectly tuned sound you can feel and crystal clear images, we make fans experience every frame of a movie. Check out IMAX.com to see what's playing in an IMAX near you.
You said you've been in a climate tech investment quite a long time. The any kind of big cases you would like to tell up from your personal history where you've been involved in building a successful climate companies?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I give an example that is a little bit sort of an unusual venture investment. I've done quite a lot of software and business model investing and also traditional mainstream investing, but maybe give an example that's a bit out there. And there's a company called eLeather, which produces at some level recycled leather. It uses waste from the leather industry and basically drizzles it up so it's the individual fibers, and then reconstitutes the leather from that. And while doing that, it introduces what is essentially a Kevlar type net, which then creates the composite of that sort of Kevlar, a little bit of, it's 5% of the whole thing, and 95% of leather fibers, creates something that looks, feels, and smells like leather, but it's much, much higher performing. So it's actually an upcycling technology, if you will.
Wow.
And we invested when the company was already in double-digit revenues. So it was a late-stage venture deal in that regard. It had a factory, it had 150 people, and it was starting to sell into various industries. That was built out to become the leading supplier into the airline industry globally and for leather seating in airlines. So almost anybody has sat on eLeather seats already without knowing that. It's, I think, 160 airlines or so that are flying in now. And they do that because it's a much higher performing material, and it's much lighter, which saves them a lot of fuel. So you get lots of benefits here. You have the benefit of using that waste from the leather industry, which is about half of the tanned leather gets thrown away because it's sort of shaves offs and cut-offs. And that actually is not traditional waste. It's hazardous waste because of the chromium-based leather tanning process. So you're reducing an enormous waste pile that exists out there. It's about 1 billion leather hides a year. So it's a lot of waste, and there are pictures of mountains of that leather waste. You're also creating CO2 benefits, not just because you do less tanning and you use that waste, but also knock-on effects like, for example, the airlines using less fuel. And you create a performance benefit because you create a material that actually is far better than using leather in itself. And then you have even more benefits. You have things like manufacturing benefits, because all of a sudden you get that material off a 100-meter long roll rather than having to deal with individual bits of animal skin. So you can feed it into a automated manufacturing process. And so you get all these cost advantages and process advantages as well. So it's the triple whammy of environmental, performance, and cost. And that's really that's really something that gets me excited.
Totally. I think that's also a kind of great example that all these discussions about whether it's profit or environment are, in many cases they are total crap. I mean, you can have both. You don't have to be, going for one or the other. as an investor? Yeah.
Yes, I think that is often the case. I think we should not lose sight of the fact that we do need to do things where we need to spend money, but the conditions need to be created by the governments, so that then the less economic part of it is covered by the government, and the commercial money can then pick it up. So I think it's true, but I would caution people to think that we get everything for free, so to speak, right? We can just change the world and make money like 100% of the time. There is a degree of pain, there's a degree of, say, extra taxes, of reallocating capital by the governments and so on that needs to happen and is happening increasingly.
This is brought to you by Fruity Pebbles. Add some creativity to your mornings with Cocoa Pebbles. With rich chocolatey flavor to feed big inspirations, Cocoa Pebbles turns the world into a playground, making breakfast a delightful canvas for creativity. Explore a world of culinary adventures and transform ordinary pancakes into chocolatey masterpieces. So what are you gonna yabba dabba do next? Head to postpebblescereal.com to learn more. Yabba dabba do and the Flintstones and all related characters and elements, copyright and trademark Hanna-Barbera.
If you're always on the go, keep going with Synergy Supreme Plus Premium Gas from Exxon and Mobil stations. It helps keep engines 2 times cleaner for better mileage, which means more time on the road and less time making pit stops along the way. Give our best fuel a try and see how far it takes you. Go on, fill up with Synergy Supreme Plus Premium Gas at Exxon and Mobil stations. Synergy Supreme Plus Premium Gas compared to Synergy Regular Gas and port fuel injected engines. Actual benefits based on continuous use may vary.
How do you see the kind of the political willingness to actually, drive the change which is needed so kind of desperately when looking at the climate change?
So in Europe, I think there's very consistent support for this, despite what we just discussed on the gas. I think the pretty much all the decision makers in Europe are bought into the need for it. In the US, it's oscillating, as we know, between the two political parties. I think the Democrats are very much behind it, Republicans less so. So it'll be quite fragile. I think China is very much bought into it. It's perfect alignment with their industrial agenda anyway. So it's not a conflict for them. Much more of a conflict in the US, I think, than it is in China. So overall, we're going in the right direction, and I think there's no way back. The current energy crisis is an interesting one because, in a way, it makes us move backwards because we're switching on coal plants again, and importing natural gas, etc., etc. On the other hand, the high energy prices, the awareness people now have of not just climate change, but also the energy security issues that come with fossil fuels and dependency on fossil fuel-rich countries are all tailwinds for the energy transition. And the EU has this initiative now called REPowerEU, which is a plan to create energy security through the energy transition. So people have now realized, actually, if we do this right, we get double impact. We become greener, and we increase the energy security in Europe and energy independence of Europe.
And looking on what's been going on the eastern front of Europe, it's kind of desperately needed.
Absolutely. And we will see next winter, we will see big parts of Europe suffering from their gas dependency. And of course, they don't want that to happen again. And there are not that many ways of solving that problem. Yes, of course, they could buy more from Qatar and so on. But that's a short-term solution. And all these countries are thinking about what do we do longer term. And of course, that's perfectly aligned with the energy transition. So we are, in fact, as an investment organization, we're sort of putting a lot of topics that we found less interesting in the past, we're putting them back on the table. because of these strong tailwinds.
Somebody in one of the early episodes was telling how the VC industry is really excited about the heat pumps, and no one thought a few years ago that this could ever happen.
Yeah. We just invested in what really is rocket science as far as heat pumps can be, right? I mean, it really is rocket science. I haven't disclosed it yet, but it's just phenomenal technology, which could revolutionize that space. And yeah, I mean, heat pumps are a big part of the solution.
Interesting. The going forward, I mean, what's on your agenda in the coming quarters, in addition to the energy transition?
I mean, organizationally, we want to build a team. We want to build partnerships. We're thinking of with this Evergreen platform that we can do partnering in a much more deep way, maybe than you can with a traditional structure. Right? We can invest in other funds. We can do all kinds of things. So that's organizationally where we want to go. In terms of investing, we want to build a number of areas where we go deep. So we don't want to do spray and pray, but we want to build expertise and knowledge and networks in specific areas over time. Another advantage of our structure, we're not, so basically a traditional structure is kind of has to focus on stage. Your Series A investor, your seed investor. But then has to do spray and pray on a sort of sector perspective. Yeah. That's very dangerous in clean tech, because there's lots of sectors that are completely disconnected. So it really literally is spray and pray. It's very different from if you say a mainstream investor where you just do internet platforms. They're all kind of similar, but if you invest in electrolyzers on one day and ESG reporting software the next day, have nothing to do with each other. And so actually, clean tech in many ways is much more diverse and much more generalist than the actual generalist funds. And so a strategy where you just do everything a little bit, but focus on stage isn't a logical strategy. It's driven by the LP sort of landscape, but it's not a logical strategy. So we want to flip it on its head and say we're thematically focused first and stage second. So we may co-found a company or invest in a Series B round. Doesn't really matter, as long as we feel comfortable in the area, we feel understanding, we have networks, we can add value, et cetera, et cetera. So building out these areas where we have strength, that's for us on the agenda. We have one area already, which is the whole alternative fuel space that I spoke about, right? But there are other areas. So nature-based solutions are a very, very fascinating area, actually, where we could also develop other finance products around. And so we want to build that out, but that's work in progress. Right?
Cool. Yeah, I lost my thought there for a second. The nature-based solutions. Anything else you could kind of share light on? What could be the other potential focus areas?
Well, I mentioned circularity. Then also as a service, right? Which is sort of similar idea. There's, I think there is almost like a revival of home energy, domestic energy going on, partly driven by the Ukraine crisis. And so it's this whole, the house, solar on the roof, batteries. We have an investment already in a next generation water boiler, surprisingly, but it's Oxford technology and it's phenomenal stuff, very fast growing company in our portfolio. So that whole, how do you create the build environment, homes? How do you create the energy transition there? There's lots of interesting angles to that, which we plan to dig in deeper into. Transport is still an interesting area, even though it's been worked on by VCs now for several years, quite heavily. So one needs to be a bit cautious. Also quite overvalued, a lot of things there. We have quite a lot of strength in everything material science. and that leads us a bit towards the battery space and those areas as well. Very difficult though to make the right calls there, so probably going to be careful there for a while. What else is there? We're looking at some really out there ideas. So currently we're looking at all the Hyperloop companies out there, which is a fascinating idea that I think is slowly maturing, and we're seeing some real sort of early commercial traction in that space. So if that develops more momentum, that's a really interesting area. So those are some examples.
The thing I was earlier thinking of is, you mentioned the kind of cooperation with other investors. How much of the problem you see potentially from the, LP-driven funds 10-year limit problem? I would see that natural fit you would probably have with some big family offices which have a evergreen approach to their investments too. But how about the kind of the classical VC funds?
Yeah, I mean, we're structurally much better aligned with family offices, and we have good relationships to a number of family offices. We're also more natural partner in a way because we're not asking for money. So which is something that as an LP fund makes it always a little bit tricky, because they're always under suspicion to just wanting to raise money. So definitely keen on building good relationships to like-minded family offices. Funds typically have a bit better reach, a bit more visibility. So there's definitely a role for funds as well. I think in many cases we can work with funds, so there's no reason not to fundamentally. Also, we can work with funds in ways where, for example, they might not do a certain investment because it doesn't fit so much to their structure, but then they show it to us and they say, "Hey, don't you guys want to do this?" So there's lots of ways of collaborating. I mean, generally, we hope, because we're not sort of threatening to anybody, we're not taking anybody's money away, right? We're not competing for LP money. We're hopefully we can be a sort of partner, conversation partner, idea exchange partner of choice for many people out there, and I believe we can add a lot. Not just the three of us have been in the area a lot, but or a long time. But we are within that larger IP Group universe, and that's a company that's present on 4 continents, has done venture capital for 20 years, has very good relationships to universities around the world. We have in-house IP lawyers here, for example, to assess patents and so on. So we have capabilities that we can bring to the table.
Cool. That's probably a good point to wrap up the discussion also. Thanks, Arne, for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Tarmo. I enjoyed it.
Join us again for the next episode. Thank you for listening. If you like the show, please give us a good rating and leave the feedback in your podcast player so others will find it too. We will be back next week. Turn on to Nature-backed Podcast.
Wild 95 is the country station on Autolus, bringing you the hits from today's chart toppers, some new up-and-coming hits, and a handful of those country hits from the past. We bring you great on-air personalities on top of all of that great music. Download the Autolus app for the best of today's country music all day and all night. Come on over to Autolus.com/Wild95.
If you're a working professional wondering what's next for your career, you've come to the right place. Whether you're looking for a promotion, growth, or a potential career transition, look no further. With over 30 years working in a variety of industries, I share my insider knowledge with those ready to get ahead on Career Advancement with Craig Ansell. Tune in to get your strategies for success.
Electricast.